Hello, Easy Dating family and Larry Michael family. I am so excited to be live with you. I can't remember the last time I did a live, and I can't remember the last time I've done an interview. I've just kind of left the universe for a minute, and now I'm back, and I'm freaking pumped. Do me a favor in the comments. First off, tell me, can you hear me? So give me a quick yes, so we get some of the logistics out of the way. And then second, tell me your name and where you're in from. I would love to hear that. It's always interesting. Both Larry and I are in California. This is Larry Michael. Larry, say hi real quick, and then I'm going to give you a bigger intro.
Hi, real quick. Is that what you want? How's that?
That was
I
it.
took you literally. Hi.
That was
It's good to
perfect.
see
That
you.
was
Actually,
perfect.
Mike, I'm really excited to be on this with you. And I'm glad you're back interviewing again because you're good at it. And, and you care a lot. So there's nothing better than that.
Thank you, sir. I want to tell you why we're going to listen to Larry and why Larry's so amazing. So I met Larry probably 5 or 6 years ago, but Larry, I believe, has been in the self-help space 40 years. Is that right?
Yeah, a long time.
All right,
Actually, since I was 14, so a long time.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I believe you were one of the first to be an employee with Tony Robbins. Is that not right?
Well, let's just say I was with him in the 90s, early stages. I mean, he'd been around for definitely a few years before me, before I got involved. So, there is a whole family of people that came before I stepped in and did what I did. So, but it was definitely early stages when they actually like a date with destiny had maybe 40 to 50 people instead of 4,000 to 10,000.
I love it. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Soraya. Nice to see you guys. So real quick, this is why I love Larry. So I had a fiance, and I think you remember the story, Larry, but we were not having sex very often. We were like low 30s, Larry, and maybe having sex once a week. And I really was beating myself up. Like it all came down to I must have low testosterone. Something must be wrong with me. And I was beating myself up. I'm like, this is awful. And then I remember one vacation, her and I went to Prague, Vienna, and Budapest.
Nice
And we had
vacation.
sex like every single day, Larry. And then we came back and we went back to our original routine, sex once a week. And this was driving me nuts. It was driving her nuts. She wanted to have sex more. I wanted to know what the heck was wrong with me. And then I finally discovered Larry. Actually, I think we broke up first. We were engaged. We broke up. And then I believe I interviewed Larry. This was maybe like 6 years ago or so. And he blew my freaking mind. And I finally got the explanation for why we weren't having sex. Larry, do you want to tell them why I wasn't having sex, or should I tell them?
No, you go ahead. I think you're on a roll. You keep doing it. Let's see what you got.
Right. So Larry, we ran the report. He's like, you got to run this report, which, by the way, it'll be free in the description below if you want it. I run the report, and there's 5 things that are really important. Well, 2 that are extremely important, but one of them, the sexual response, exactly explained why we were not sexually compatible. So what we found out, and I'm going to butcher this, Larry, you'll make it better, that folks are either physical or mental emotional. And physical is like, the blowtorch, you're horny, you're ready to go, you go have sex. There's 0 to 60, you're fast, you're ready to roll, you're horny, let's get it on. And we always thought that was all men. Every man must be physical. They see a hot woman, they want to have sex, boom. But that's not the case. It's 50% mental emotional, 50% physical. So what I discovered was I was mental emotional and my partner was physical. So she would sometimes just put on lingerie, walk around and be like, Mike, let's go. And, we haven't talked all day. And I'm like, what? And I'm a man. And then she'd feel rejected. She'd be like, I just put on lingerie and I'm this 5'11" supermodel. Like, why don't you want to have sex with me? And I just, I don't know. And so after talking to Larry, I'm mental emotional. I need to bond. I need to talk with someone. I need to spend time with them. So that's why, which explains why we were on vacation. We're exploring Prague. We're walking around Budapest. We're going hiking. We're seeing the Schönbrunn Castle in Vienna. These experiences made me like alive and fall in love again with my partner and want to touch her and want to be sexual. Where she doesn't need any of this stuff. If she's horny, she's like, come on, let's go. So we were speaking two different languages. How'd I do, Larry?
You did good. I mean, you did great. And anybody listening to this is going, oh, crap, I could be in trouble. And so I just want to preface that you're not in trouble, but there are things that you need to be aware of to make sure that that person you really care about is attended to, including yourself, right? And so the piece that you didn't have at the time is an understanding of what your differences were, because if you understood them, you could have accommodated for each other. But the reality is that, like, at least in our research, people that had what we would call, a different energetic profile in that area, especially around sexuality, 95% of those relationships fail over time. But they don't fail if they understand what's going on and what they can do about it. And it's changed those statistics dramatically for the people that know about this. So there's huge value here. But sex is not the only issue, right? There's a lot more that we can talk about.
Absolutely. Which kind of brings us to our topic, the 5 secrets that cause relationships to succeed or fail. And I'm so enthused by what Larry just said, which was, if I would have known what I know now about sexual response, maybe we could have figured that out. And because I didn't run the report until after our relationship ended, our relationship failed. So that's reason number 1, is knowing your sexual response. So for anyone that's watching this, when you get an opportunity, you go in the YouTube description and you get Larry's free report so that you don't make the same mistake I did. And, I had a great partnership for a long time that went by the wayside because I didn't have the skills at that time to make that side of the relationship work. All right, so I'll shut up now. Larry, do you want to give us very quickly the 5 things? And I want to go through it quick because I think they can get that other. They can't get it anywhere else. But I want to go through it quickly because what I want to then dive into is what people have and when they're different, how they can navigate that. Because I think that'd be really useful.
Yeah, I think we'll actually cover that a little bit as we go through it too. And I'll preface to say that the 5 things that really make relationships successful, I would say just one of them is genetic energetics, Mike. So,
really,
I mean, we can break down genetic energetics infinitely into a whole variety of categories. And I'll go through that as you requested in a few seconds. But that is just one piece that really can determine the success of a relationship. There's probably more than 5, but the 5 is a nice juicy number you can kind of wrap your arms around. And what makes anything important in a relationship, and we talked about this a little bit before we even got going, is we have to be curious. We have to be really, really curious about not just who we are, but who that person is that the universe is put in front of us at this moment in time, at this place, in this time, right now, right? We need to be curious. And curious means that we don't conclude or judge, but we want to understand, we want to know who the person is. Because there's a reason why they show up, right? There's a reason why they show up in our lives. You and I had a chance to meet again, after a couple years not having seen each other. What was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And there was, I guarantee you there was a reason why we came together on that night at that time, and it had value that extends on today, because you came with a friend, and it was, there was a lot we talked about, not just genetic energetics. So I look back at that and go, wow, what a gift. But if I was entering into an opportunity to be with you and go, oh yeah, it's Michael, we always have, we always talk about these few things, and we never talk about that shit, so we're not going to talk about that. And I just concluded ahead of time what our time together was going to be like, then I've just stolen, not just from myself, but from you, the opportunity to be surprised by something new that I never would have thought of.
Yeah. So let me, because you said that, and because I was thinking it while you were talking, you got me really curious, Larry.
Good word.
A lot of dating coaches are, and maybe even yourself and relationship coaches are saying it should be easy with your partner. So how do we balance it should be easy versus getting curious versus well, I just want a man that knows what I need and want. I don't want to have to tell him. So where do we sit on those three issues?
Oh my
and how do we
gosh,
balance that?
you pulled up three totally separate things. So anybody that's saying, I just want a man that I don't have to tell him he's supposed to know everything about me, or a man that says, I want a woman that just understands me and knows how to take care of, my needs. That's fantasy world. Like, if we're expecting someone else to totally understand us when they haven't spent time getting to know us, you're on drugs, and not good drugs. You're just out there in some fantasy land, and I guarantee you that's a recipe to crash and burn.
Mm,
And
I agree.
I'll just put an axiom right at the beginning of what we're talking about tonight, and that most people, when they go into relationships, they're looking for proof. It's like, you go on a dating site, you come up with a profile, you meet that person, and you want proof almost immediately that they're going to be the one, right? They're looking for that. They're constantly looking for all these things, all the pegs to fit in exactly the right holes, and they're looking for proof. So the reality is, if we look for proof, we're always at some point going to be unhappy and dissatisfied. So the very first thing we need to do if you want your relationship to succeed is you have to stop looking for proof and instead allow yourself to be surprised by the truth. I'll say it again. Stop looking for proof. Stop it. Just stop looking for proof and allow yourself to be surprised by the truth. And think about that. When have the most marvelous things happened to you? Not when you constructed them, but when you were surprised by them. When something happened, you went, whoa, I didn't see that coming. This is amazing. Right? Or, I went to this party looking to meet this person or this person, and then we started talking, and next thing I knew, I didn't want to be with anybody else. What a surprise, right? Being surprised by that serendipitous moment that someone, somehow special shows up, and you discover something you did not plan on. And our relationships need to be like that. There needs to be this constant surprise that we allow to happen. Because if we're looking for proof, then what we're doing is it's like two people going, look, I need to give this to you and you need to give this to me, and we're going to keep track of how much time you spend taking care of these things and how much time you take care of these things, and then you have these letter boards that have comparisons. That is an old-fashioned way of relating that just flat out does not work today. There is a reason why the divorce rate is as high as it is. We stopped believing in the old principles of marriage that our parents and their parents were taught were the things that kept families together, kept religious circles together. There was a purpose for them at some point in time. But guess what? We didn't have the internet. We had encyclopedias that we didn't want to look at, right? We went to a dictionary instead of looking at the Britannica to understand the world. We hardly knew any areas outside of miles from our home. Now the entire world is available to us. It's complex and it's exciting, and there's a ton of information, and you can't constrict it anymore. You have to be open to its growth. And so stop looking for proof. Be surprised by the truth. Be curious. There's two critical things there. Be curious about who and what and why someone shows up in your life. Don't judge. Ask why. And if you can do those two things, you pretty much have your relationship nailed, even if you don't know anything about genetic energetics. So now let's talk about what the heck is genetic energetics. That's why I have this really cool, visual image behind me, because that's the energy being exchanged between two people. And the reality is that we have a really fancy new name for it. We call it genetic energetics, but it is the oldest system of compatibility and connection that humans have used in all of mankind. It goes back to our beginning, to when we were cavemen and cavewomen, right? Is that we made decisions on who we wanted to spend time with and how we wanted to engage with them based on the energy that flowed between us. And the reality is that we have energetic frequencies that we vibrate at. And those frequencies are not always the same with another person's frequency, but in ourselves, it's like our blood type. So those people that are listening right now, most people have heard the statements, energy is everything, and everything is energy, and energy is never lost, and it's never destroyed. It's displaced, it's moved around, all these different things. Well, that's true of a certain kind of energy. The type of energy that I'm talking about tonight has to do with our internal energy. It's a frequency we vibrate at, and it's determined genetically. So it is very much like our blood type, right? You have a blood type, it doesn't change. You go into a hospital to get to have surgery, and the hospital needs to know what your blood type is, because if they transfuse you with the wrong blood type, you die, right? But the reality is, for most people, we're doing relationship surgery all the time without knowing the blood type. How freaking dangerous is that? Well, it explains why so many relationships blow up. And they don't just blow up. I mean, there's a difference between a relationship that takes a different course, and then we can part as friends, we can consciously uncouple, or we can remain with someone in our life who we really love and care for, but we know that at this point in our life, we're going different directions, and that happens. That happens. We don't live 34 to 40 years anymore. We live up to 100 years or more. And so that's a long time for any two people to be together. I believe when someone says death do you part is not the death of your body, it's the death of the relationship. And so when that commitment's made in a marriage ceremony and says, I commit to you till death do us part, it means I'm in 100%. I'm all in. But it doesn't mean that I'm all in for the life of me. It's for the life of us. Right? So now I just went off on a tangent, Mike. I hope that's okay.
No, I love that. That's fabulous.
So now we can dive into genetic energetics and talk about what it is, if you want me to do that quickly.
Well, I have a few side questions, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hey, it's your program. I'm just being interviewed.
All right,
Ask
cool.
me anything you like.
A few minutes ago, what were you? Basically, the question is: so, are you asking folks, one, be curious, but two, massively stay in the present? Is that what you're kind of looking for?
As much as possible. There really is nothing else. I mean, seriously, the past is the past. It's gone. You can't recreate it, no matter how you try. If you try and duplicate something from the past, it's impossible to do, because the present gives you a different constitution than you had in the past. It's never going to be the same. A lot of people do that. They go, well, this is the love I had with my high school sweetheart, and I want that same thing again. And so they're trying to create that same thing again. Well, it's never going to be the same. The relationship that you and I have as friends, I mean, we certainly have built something, right? But the relationship we have is what we encounter right now. Now, people are going, well, wait a second, isn't the past important? Well, it's important in being able to discern whether someone's maybe trustworthy or whether someone is interested in and caring for you to a certain degree, just to a certain degree. But if we are living in the present based on what we've experienced in the past, we're not really living in the present. We're only living in the past. I mean, trauma work. There are people that have had deep emotional and physical trauma in their life. Now, the only reason why that trauma is still affecting them today is because parts of that trauma are still present for them at this moment. Now, it's easy for me to say, hey, it's in the past. Does it exist now? And they can go, well, no, it doesn't exist now. And then I could say, well, then why are you experiencing it now? It's because they haven't found a way to release it from the past. And so I can be compassionate about that. And at the same time, I know that the real cure, if you will, for letting go of those traumas is not to bring them with you. Easier said than done. But that is it. If you can get and live fully in the present, in this moment, gauge your relationships on how you interact with someone in this moment. Gauge your connection on how you relate to someone in this moment, this very moment. Then whatever you've experienced in the past is not here. You get to have a fresh, unique, and beautiful experience. Or you may have a fresh, unique, and I don't want to do this experience, right? But you get to decide that with freedom and choice. Most traumas didn't come with freedom and choice. In the present, you have it. So again, I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to just dismiss something horrendous that may have happened to you in the past. But I do know that for us to experience the present fully and to experience the potential connection between any two people or multiple people fully, then we have to be as present as possible. Right? How many times have you heard when you've coached couples them say, well, he always treats me like this. He is always treating me like this. And you can ask the question, always? And this is kind of getting more dissecting, if you will. And you say always, they'll go, well, not recently, but he did that 4 weeks ago, and he did that 4 years ago, and he did it, a decade ago. And so I'm sure he's going to do it again. And I can turn around and look at the man and go, and he says, look at, she's right. I did do those things in the past. And I know from my personal experience, what happened to be that 3 days ago, I nearly died in a motorcycle accident, and I saw my life go before me and knew that it was time to change. So in that moment, everything that I've done in the past, I saw those things and decided never, ever again, right? And here's this person that has a near-death experience that doesn't want the past that he's just let go to be brought into the present. So, easy for him. He nearly died. Easy and not so easy. Tougher for her because she didn't go through what he just went through. And she's now got to trust herself to be discerning and be present with this man who has made a monumental shift in how he shows up. It's possible. It happens. It happens all the time. So if it can happen to one person, it can happen to another. Why doesn't it happen? Or why isn't it allowed? Because we're either living in the past or we're trying to construct a future that doesn't exist yet. And that's the next biggest mistake. is that we create these expectations and these constructions of what we want in the future, and we miss what happens in the present.
Mm.
I want someone who's going to love me and support me and take care of me. And they miss the fact that the person they're with is probably more loving in this moment, listening and paying attention more closely than anybody else ever has to them in their life. But they're too busy projecting on the future to even notice that someone sees them completely or hears them. So if we're in the past or we're in the future, we're not opening ourselves up to be seen or heard. And there is no more powerful place to be than when you can be in the reflection of another person who sees you and hears you and gives you that sense of you being home in yourself, in your body, in who you are. So why am I so passionate about genetic energetics? Why is it my Dharma path? Because I've never seen anything in my entire history of coaching and consulting and therapy work that gets people there as quickly as this does. Never. I mean, there are relationships that get changed in 30 minutes to an hour instead of months or sometimes years of therapy work. Does it seem inconceivable? No, it's not. It's just a matter of all of a sudden the light being switched on. A lot of us are inside these huge cavernous spaces underneath in this little circle with a light shining down on us, and all we see is what's 20 feet in every direction, right?
Mm.
And so we react and live within what's 20 feet in every direction. But imagine now if someone walked to the corner of this huge cavernous space, flipped a light, and all of a sudden huge halogen lights come on and the whole place is illuminated, and you go, oh my God, there's a waterfall. I didn't even know there was a waterfall there. There's a slide. There's children. There's like, look at the vegetation. There's more food than I could possibly eat. And, and look at all the people laughing. We don't see those things because we have the lights turned off. So we need to turn them on. We need to illuminate the world by being present in it.
Well said.
So genetic energetics, it's the other thing about it, other than it helping people get clear fast, is it's kind of simple. I mean, in its complex way, it's simple because it breaks down our relationships into 4 primary lifestyle traits: how we communicate, how we process information and live our lives, how we relate to money, and how we sexually engage. And those 4 things, the 4 pillars, right? There's like, it seems like all typologies have pillars of some sort, and usually they're 4. In this case, we have 4, and for each one of them, there's 2 variations. So the first pillar is communication style, how we communicate, the words we use, the way we express ourselves, our sense of humor. So in that communication style, there's 2 variations, Michael. There's someone who's figurative, and there's someone who's structural. Now you're listening to someone who's structural, right? I pick my words to mean exactly what I want to say. I mean, totally. I pick them to mean exactly what I want to say. And I don't necessarily need to put a lot of emotion into it to say it, to mean it. So if I say to someone just like this, I go, I love you, it kind of sounds like, where's the emotion behind it? Right? It's like, really? Did you just say I didn't even hear you. So the figurative person is going, I didn't hear the emotion, so you couldn't have really been talking or saying anything important to me. But if I go, oh my God, I love you so much. Now, are you listening?
I heard it.
You heard it, right? So between those 2, we need to understand that difference. If my partner's figurative talking style, I know they're going to use words that to me might not make any sense, but to them make perfect sense. My sweetheart will talk about emotions and say all the feels, right? And like, I remember I'd never heard that expression before. Now I understand it. It means that her emotions are like, it's like the enormous. It's more than just a pinprick, right? There's a lot there. And if I looked that up in Webster's dictionary, I wouldn't have had the answer. But by asking her, what does that mean? Or watching or listening differently, I get that she's really talking about there's a lot of emotion going on right now. Right. So if I didn't listen for that and I missed it, I might have ignored or not seen something that was critically important for this very special person to me in that moment. That's a travesty. So if we don't understand our different communication styles, whether they're figurative or structural, and there's a lot more detail around that. That's what the free report's for. If we don't understand those differences, we can blow up a relationship quickly just by not feeling loved or heard or seen in how we communicate. You know, people get, they pick up their phones, right? Here's my phone, and I'm going to send a text message to my sweetheart, right? And I'm going to tell her all these different things. And it's like, text messaging, folks, it's good for letting someone know what time you're going to show up. You know, what time is dinner? I'm running late. But it's not good for conversation. It never has been. We're taking the hugest risk we can possibly take by text messaging. You know, so we know there's two different communication styles, 50-50 chance of understanding each other. But we know from the vowel surveys that if you take communication, it's composed of the words we use, the tonality we have, and our physical elements. So words are only 7% of communication. Tonality, like what we're hearing right now, me talking, is critically important. And what I do with my hands and, you know, where my body is, and if I'm sitting here like this, or, you know, that kind of thing, the physical part, that's 55%. So words are only 7%. And there's a 50-50 chance that you're accurate. That means you got a 3.5% chance of being understood.
I have a question.
Well, let me finish this first, though.
Okay, go.
So if there's a 3.5% chance of being understood in a text message, it means there's a 96.5% chance you're not being understood. Holy shit. That's taking a lot of risk. So go ahead. Ask your question.
Okay. So this always confused, like, I know that stat from business school, but so if you're structural, why is tonality so important?
Oh, it is for all of us. Because I can be using words a certain way, but the tonality is going to give me some dimension to those words, right? Not necessarily the emotion to it, but the kind of how big or small they are. Right? There's just it's just an element of how we interact with someone. If I'm talking softly versus I'm talking more boisterous, right? Or I'm yelling. So I can, you know, this is a great one between the two. Figurative talking style people have a tendency to say to their partners, you were yelling at me, right? You yelled at me. And the structural person is going, wow, I never even raised my voice. When did I yell at you? Well, you yelled at me when you told me this, and this. And again, I'm structural. I'm thinking Webster's yell means raise your voice. I never raised my voice, but it felt like it to them, right? So you yelled at me. And so we're in an argument about, I never yelled at you. You know, now I'm yelling. I'm really upset now because you're accusing me of something. You know, now they're going, now you're screaming at me, right? But you never even had to get to that point if you just understand that if someone said they were yelling at you, meant something emotionally hit them that was really potent and more potent than you meant to express it. So, you know, that's why understanding those communication styles are critical. Activity level. You know, this is the speed that we process information, how we run our lives. I'm moderate active. So the speed I'm talking right now is kind of my normal speed of talking. Now, there are super active people, and anybody that's listening to this, you'll know if you're super active because you got to stop yourself from finishing other people's sentences, right, Mike? Yeah. You know, because most of the time you know what someone's going to say before they're done saying it, and you're just being nice. You're being kind, letting us finish, right? So if you and I are going to have a conversation, if you come to hang out with me and I'm just in my moderate active talking position all day, there's a point where you're going to kind of go, oh God. You know? But if I talk really fast and say, hey, what do you want to do today? Let me give you all the information I have. I'll give it to you as quickly as I can. And I'll tell you everything you need to know. You just ask me a question and I'll give it to you at that speed. Look at Mike's face when I'm talking. He's like lighting up. So, people that are super active listening to this going, he could have said all this stuff in half the time. Why was he talking so slow? It's just because that's the speed that I talk at, right? Unless I know that I'm with a super active person, and then I'm going to speed up a little bit. Now, is that not natural for me? Yes, it's not natural for me to talk that fast. But is it, if the person that I'm with is that important, is it worth it for me to speed up occasionally so that I meet them where they're at? So they can be elevated by the conversation to some degree. I mean, if I'm excited about it, I can certainly talk fast. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't mean it like that. If I'm not certain about what I want to say, that's better. I might slow down. I might even stop. So as a moderate active person, I have a tendency, actually, if I'm not sure what I want to say or what I believe, I literally will like go, Now, the super active person watching me doing this is going, come on, let's go, right? And I just want to make sure that what I say is what I really mean. Now,
do you think that goes with your structural thing too?
What's that?
Does that go hand in hand with your structural? Because you got to make sure you say the right word versus my figurative. I can just vomit some word that doesn't make any sense.
It does. Yeah, I was going to say, so a figurative person, my daughter is figurative and super active. She talks so fast, Mike, sometimes I don't understand her. I mean, I literally don't understand her. I know she's speaking English, but the words come out so quick, I just have to go, Katie, it's my daughter's name. What did you just say? And then she repeats it at the same speed. And I go, I still don't know what you just said. Slow down and talk to me like this so I get it. Right? Which to her now sounds like me. But so I have to know that, or I'd be eternally frustrated with her and she'd be upset with me all the time. She knows we have different communication styles. So when I tell her, please slow down, she used to get really upset at me. Like, why don't you just listen, Dad? It's more like, why don't you just listen, Dad? And I'm going, okay, think I heard, why don't you just listen? But you got to go, I'm not sure what she said. And of course, she's my daughter. I want to hear her. Or if it's my beloved who's super active and figurative, and I'm structural and moderate active, my ears need to be a little bit bigger and more sensitive, and I need to stay curious, right? Don't conclude. So the super active person has a tendency to conclude because they think that they know what someone's going to say before they're done saying it. And a healthy super active person knows not to put words in the other person's mouth because occasionally they could be surprised. Right? It's like, wow, I didn't think you were going to say that. I thought I knew what you were going to say, but I didn't expect that. Right? Can you relate to that, Mike?
Yeah, because every time I talk to you, I think I know what you're going to say, and then you surprise me.
So those things, and then the other thing about moderate active or super active, it's how we run our lives. So the moderate active person, man, I can run like a bat out of hell and I can go fast and work on a task. And when I'm done, it's like, okay, I really don't need to know what I'm going to do next. I could watch a movie. I could take a nap. I could do, I just don't need to know. But the super active person operates much more efficiently, kind of more coherently inside themselves when they have a plan from the time their head leaves the pillow in the morning till it goes back on the pillow at night. When they have a plan, they feel like their life is efficient and working for them, that it's in flow. And that sense of being on purpose in flow is critically important for all of us. And so for me, as a moderate active person, seeing a figurative person really plan things out accurately, I could turn around and go, geez, you need to take a break, just chill. Well, that's not fair, because they don't need to take a break, and they're going to chill when they want to chill. So they can plan out their day. It's not like they're just going crazy all day long. They can plan out their day, so they exercise in the morning, they take their kids to school, then they do yoga, then they're going to take time to meditate, or they like to take long showers or long baths. It's just part of the plan. And that plan it feels really right to be in that space. COVID was very disruptive to superactive people. More people depressed than ever. And most of them, a lot of them, at least from my experience working them, were super active because their entire life got thrown upside down. Someone came in and said, stop, just stop. You don't get to go anywhere. You just get to stay here, and you got to wear a mask, and you got to, be fearful for your life. Just do that. And don't do anything else, right? Don't go get groceries. Don't do any of that. You can make yourself dinner. That's okay. But you're not going anywhere, right? So their world was stopped. And sometimes it was stopped with people that they don't necessarily like to spend a lot of time with. So there were a lot of challenges, and depression set in. And when those people start to get depressed, there's a tendency, if we follow the pharmaceutical world, to go look for drugs to help us as antidepressants. And we now know in recent studies that came out this year that most antidepressants don't work, and they never have. They actually take you down a road that becomes more desperate and more disastrous. But what we did when we had a super active person that was in a state of depression and on drugs is we'd stop them and we'd interview them, and we would plan out the next 48 hours of their life, like the whole thing, 48 hours without any gaps, and say, all right, you're off the drugs, follow this plan. And in 2 days, when we checked back in, they didn't want the drugs, and they were not depressed. Did they still have things that took them into the depression that they needed to work with? Yes, but they had the resources now to deal with them, to work with them. So, someone asked me, how's genetic energetics help? Well, right there saves a lot of people a lot of pain. Right? Just the communication style alone, being able to acknowledge and honor those differences, saves unbelievable amounts of tragedy from happening.
Yeah, and I just want to interject that, I know we're dating coaches and relationship coaches here, but this just isn't your partner or your beloved. This is your boss. This is your family member. This is your friend. This is everybody you interact with. When I interact with Larry, who's my friend, I know all of his 5 things, and I try to be a little more structural when I speak with him. Not very good at it, but I try. And when I used to work in corporate and had bosses, or even now I have 10 employees that report to me. What are they? How do I interact with them? And then, even going further, it's nice to know their love languages. Do they want words of appreciation? Do they want acts of service? So all of this stuff plays into how we interact as humans. Sorry, Larry. And then go into the third one.
Well, the third one is we call financial logic. And this one, it plays a role in our lives for sure. It's not as challenging in terms of relationships as the other ones, because conditioning can have us have a relationship with money that's very different than what genetically we're designed to have. Right? There's 2 kinds. There's conservative financial logic. There's non-conservative. Conservative financial logic person has an awareness about money. It's like they know how much money they have or they don't have most of the time, right? Mm-hmm. And almost I said what they have and they don't have. So they're aware of how much is in their bank account most of the time. The non-conservative financial logic, yeah, me too, right? The non-conservative financial logic person, we call them rainmakers. Like money just shows up for them. And when I interview them and ask them, have you ever really worried about money? Like worried that you were going to be without? And they'll go, even if they've been broke and had to couch surf, they'll go, no, not really. It shows up when I really need it. And I'm telling you, that's like 100% of the time. That's the case. And it's crazy how it happens. And it's been hugely illuminating for me, the conservative one, because I'm counting money. And the reality is, like in business, if I'm counting all the dollars, it's kind of like I need to lock my doors because I'm keeping people out. I'm so focused on how much I have and don't have that I'm not open to what I'm contributing. The non-conservative financial logic person is never worried about that, which means that they're kind of available to the contribution that they can provide to someone. So there, there's and especially you have a figurative person that is like that. They're very touchy-feely, they're very open, and they're just so generous because when they look at someone, they're thinking, how do I help? How do I improve their lives? So for me, as a conservative financial logic person, even when I talk to CEOs that are conservative financial logic, I'll say, here's the deal. You can look at the bottom line, you can look at your spreadsheet, but what I want you to focus on is what is the contribution your business or you as a person are bringing to the world. As a result of someone using your product or service, how has it changed their life? And not just their life, but the people that they connect with, their loved ones, their brothers, their sisters, their uncles, the other people they work with. How are their lives enriched? Because that's what you're really doing, is enriching someone's life. I don't care if it's a freaking oil filter you sell, or or you're a musician, or you're a sex worker. It doesn't matter. If you're focused on how you are changing people's lives and that contribution is making a difference, then abundance will flow your way. It just does. So us conservative financial logic people have to work on that, because our natural place to go is like, oh, here's receipts and it's got this much stuff in it and it adds up to this, and it means I've got that much less money when I'm done. It's like, we can honor that, but we have to combine it with the other to really see abundance. So that's the value for that. And those people that are non-conservative, that really don't like to manage money, like if you're in a relationship, if you're in a partnership with someone and you're conservative financial logic and they're non-conservative, who should be handling the books in the family? The answer's pretty straightforward. The person that likes to handle books, right?
Oh.
Right. And if you have, what I say when I meet couples and there's two people that are non-conservative financial logic, and I'll say, so who handles the money in the house? And, they'll go, well, we kind of switch roles because none of us like doing it. I went, right on, get yourself an accountant, get a bookkeeper. Neither of you should be doing it. You should be paying a bookkeeper to do it because it's more quality time that you get to spend with each other. Come on now. Just like find someone who's conservative financial logic, run a profile on them. Here's, your point. You can use genetic energetics, run a profile you're hiring to see if they're the right financial logic to manage your money. Easy, simple. Just do it, right? And you'll be happy you did. Okay, that's financial logic. Now comes the big one. Back to where we started. Sex.
Sex. I knew it was coming.
Right. So here's the deal. Whether you're young or you're old, we're all in need of moving sexual energy. It's life force, Kundalini energy. It's moving through us, through the chakra systems. This is kind of all airy fairy language a little bit here for some people. Doesn't matter. It happens. Energy is moving. Your sexual energy needs to move. So there are two types of sexual response type. There's the mental emotional person. That's me. That's you, Michael, right? So for us, the prelude to sex is really important. I mean, it's really important. We have to have a feel. We have to have all the feels, as my beloved would say, right? It's got to be there. And the romance, the environment. I had my sweetheart come visit from Denver for Thanksgiving. And the most exciting thing I did, other than having a huge party, is to go out to a florist and get a bunch of flowers so that I could create this incredible bouquet for her. Everybody at the party got to enjoy it, but in my mind, it's for her. That is emotional foreplay, guys. That's me being so teed up and tuned up that the minute I see her, I just want to take her in my arms. Right? but it's the prelude to the sexual engagement is important for us. Now, it doesn't mean that we can have a quickie, right, Mike? We can
Sure can.
appreciate that. That can be fun, but it won't sustain us. And then the other piece to know is that our sexual energy is always on the surface. It's visible. People can see it and feel it. Now, for the women on this call who are mental, emotional, sexual response type, most of you all have the same experience when you were young without doing anything. You were accused of being flirtatious or too promiscuous or something of that nature. Like your parents and teachers would pick up on this sexual energy because they could feel it, they could see it, it's visible to all of us. And they would accuse little girls of behaving in ways that they never did. They may want to just play with someone or be interested in someone. Both men and women feel that. And so the result is most mental, emotional, sexual response type people dress very, especially women, dress very conservatively because they don't want to be misunderstood. It doesn't help them. There's still, the sexual energy is still there, but they think it helps, right? And then they'll dress to the nines and get provocative for someone they care about, or if they're on a particular task, if you will. But otherwise, they don't want to be misunderstood. So they dress down. I can put 100 women in a room and probably with 99 to 100% accuracy tell you who's physical and who's mental, emotional by how they dress. Because it's, especially if they're in their late 30s or 40s, because they've had enough experience that they don't want to be misunderstood again. Right? So the mental, emotional person, sexual energy is moving all the time. It starts from our head and our heart. So if you're listening to David Data or John Gray or Alison Armstrong or a Tantra teacher, they're going to tell you that all men source their sexual energy from their cock, right? Starts at their core and it moves up. It's just not true. That's true for 50% of the men. But the other 50% are like you and I, Michael. We source it, our sexual energy, from here and here, and it moves down, right? You know that. Well, look at Michael shake his head. He's not shaking his head just because it's interesting. It's because he knows that's his truth. And it's a big awareness. Now, the physical sexual response type person and women on the call, you've been listening. And what I'll say to you is that the byline we have for you is when you're hot, you're hot. You like the flowers, you like the music, you like the presentation, you like the prelude to sex. But do you need it? Answer that. Do you need it? And without fail, Michael, when I ask that question, the physical sexual response woman or man will have this moment of pause. Like they have to think about it. You and I don't have to think about it. We know we need it. It's instant. It's like, bam, I know. There's just no question about it. But they have this pause and they're going, well, I like all that stuff, but just do me. Right? And that's it. It's when they're hot, they're hot. We need to know that if our partners are physical sexual response type, because if they approach us and they want us and we go, let's do it a little later. Let's, we're going to go do these things first. Let's kind of go this route first, and they may appreciate our intentions, but at an other than conscious level, their body's going, missed my cue. You missed my cue. Right? And this is not a conscious thing. So I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was dating a gal who's physical sexual response type, and it was never more clear to me than when this happened. So she was coming, she worked all day. She's a doctor. She's coming over for dinner, and she's going to show up at 6:00. So I'm scrambling. I did flowers, music. I have the fireplaces lit, the food's cooked, everything's ready to go, and I have dinner ready for her because I know she's going to be hungry, right? When she gets there, and I want to make sure she gets fed right away. I just wanted to provide. And I'm doing all this, and I'm doing, of course, all my own foreplay, so I'm ready. So she comes to the door, and I go, honey, hi, are you hungry? And she looks at me and goes, oh, I'm hungry. Right? She didn't want food. She wanted me. And I knew what that meant. And instantly in my mind, I went, leftovers will be fine. We can reheat this stuff. It's totally cool. And off we went to play for a couple hours, and then we came back and ate later, right? But had I said to her, dinner's ready, honey. It's all ready, and we get to eat it hot, and I made something really special for you. And she would have just gone at a conscious level. She's going, oh, it's so sweet. It's so wonderful. Like, I feel so cared for. And we sit down to eat, but at the unconscious level, her body's going, missed my cue. Hey, you missed my cue. Don't do that again, right? So I can get away with it once. I can maybe get away with it twice. But after that, at an other than conscious level, what happens is the person's body shuts down before I even get a chance. So the most common thing I hear when I meet couples that are mismatched in that way, and it's been a while, is that the mental emotional partner will go, I don't know what to do to get them excited. Like, they excite me. I look at them laying on the bed, and I'm like filled full of desire for this person, but I don't know how to excite them. And the challenge is that again, subconsciously the body is shut down, because who wants to get excited and then be disappointed over and over again? So that we have inadvertently conditioned our partners not to really want to engage with us. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have a partner who is physical and you're mental emotional, what you need to do is learn how to move sexual energy with them. You need to listen. You need to be available. You need to hear their cues when they give it to you. And conversely, the physical sexual response type person needs to know that prelude is important. It's not like climb in bed and do me. There's more to it that we need. Now, the prelude is important to us. For the physical sexual response type person, the aftermath is really important. And I say this all the time to mental emotional partners that have physical sexual response mates. And I'll go, if you get out of bed, you make love, you have a really wonderful, encounter, whether you orgasm or not, doesn't matter. But it's just, you have this beautiful encounter, and then you hop out of bed and you go to the bathroom, and then you check your phone and you do these things. No. Go to the bathroom, get your ass back in bed as fast as possible, because you don't get out of bed until they tell you it's over. So the aftermath is really important. There's a cool down period. There's kind of a hold on to period where their body returns to a place that says, all right, now I'm ready for my day. And if we ignore that, it's just as big a travesty as someone ignoring the fact that the prelude to sex is important to us as mental emotional.
That's for the physical, they need the aftermath?
Yes. So mental emotional, the prelude. Physical, the aftermath.
So how come the mental emotional doesn't want the aftermath?
They got it all done in advance. Their sexual energy is already moving. And when we have a sexual encounter, when we're done, we're like done, right? And then we can kind of like move on and do other things, or go to sleep, or whatever we want to do. It's like, and unless, now if we really like had this long, beautiful, powerful sexual engagement, we're probably going to need some sleep. But the key here is that because we need to regenerate. So what's going on? If you have two physical sexual response type people, they're vibrating in exactly the same frequency. And this is important to understand. Like, people ask all the time, well, should I have a partner that's exactly like me? Right? So there's advantages to that, yes. And there's also other things to be concerned about that we have to be aware of. And I can talk about that a little bit in a few moments. But the key thing to remember is that having this information, like any typology, like any personality assessment, this isn't to determine in advance what the relationship is going to need or how it's going to look. If you're doing that, you're looking for proof. There's the mistake. So even when I certify people to be what we call ERPs, energetic relationship practitioners in our system, the first thing I tell them on the first day is I say, I'm going to give you the most profound, powerful tool that you could possibly have in your profession. And I'm also going to tell you, I don't want you to use it. And they look at me like, are you wacky? What did I mishear you? And then I'll follow up and say, I don't want you to use it to project on someone how they're going to show up. Because any two people are different. And there are many, pieces to this ingredient that is that relationship. And so we can use these tools to understand something when it happens and to accommodate and honor it and acknowledge it when it happens, or it's happening. But to project on someone in advance that this is the way they're going to behave, or they're not going to hear me, or they're not going to listen to me, that's just cruel. Right? And yes, if we're looking for proof, we're really being cruel, not just to ourselves, but to others. So we got to stop that. And the same thing, if you are into astrology or numerology or human design or gene keys or enneagrams or DISC or wealth dynamics, I mean, we can go down a litany of things, right? And they all have valuable things. Enneagrams, they have valuable things to share with us. But if we're using that to determine whether this relationship can work or not work in advance, that's bullshit. That's a travesty. No one should be doing that. It's what our politicians do. Why do Democrats hate Republicans? Because they think they're all going to do the same things that Republicans do or Democrats do. And they create this crazy word called a narrative that's just polarizing, right? We're looking for a mirror image of how poorly we do relationships. All we have to do is look at our political system. Same mistakes, only amplified. Right? We want to get out of political jam. We just need to ask why. We need to be curious. Why are people needing or wanting something? Why are you reacting the way you're reacting? Why does this scare you? Why is this important to you? What's the deeper why? Be curious. Like, why should be your favorite word. And it's not why so you can figure out the future or the past. It's why now? Why now? Right? So with genetic energetics, we have this tool that enlightens us. When we have an experience, we can go, oh, that's what that is. So it's calling on me to be more accommodating to this particular behavior because it's genetically driven. Right? I can do that. I mean, this person shows up in my life and I adore them. This is the most amazing person I have met ever. And so if I find out we're different energetically, should I say, bye-bye? No, that's cruel, right? No. Now, it's a little bit more bumpy, and that's okay. Depending on the relationship, it could be worth it. And some relationships aren't. Like, you're attracted to them, and then you find out that, wow, we really don't agree on a lot of things. We have completely different values, different visions, different ways we want to achieve outcomes in our life, different ideas about family or where we want to live. One likes cold weather, one likes warm weather. Well, those are important things too, right? We have to take all of those in consideration. But you find someone that loves the same things you love, wants to do the same things you want to do, handles and interacts with their kids the way that you just adore that happens. In fact, you learn things from them. Has family relationships that are precious to you, yet you're different genetically, energetically. Okay. I know what to do to work with that. When it comes up, I know what to do to honor and acknowledge that person. And we're not compromising. I hate the word compromise, Mike. It's like I hear coaches say, well, you got to compromise. And I just go, oh, God, it makes me mad, right? Because I think compromise means that you give up something for someone else. You literally give up something. So I take a more tantric approach. I call it accommodation. Like if someone needs something, can I accommodate that? And in doing that, it's me always being in my yes. Even though it might seem like a no, because I'm going to not do something so something else can happen, but I'm doing it with purpose and desire. Right? So I'm not giving up anything. I'm staying in my yes. My yes means I want to be there for that person, or my no means that it's a yes to me, right? And that's really critical difference. Instead of like, no, you have to do this for me. Well, that's exchange work. That's where people get in trouble. And we don't have to do it. If you can honor, acknowledge, respect, and love someone, then you're in a way, way better place. Like anytime that we're out of the present, that's when you have resentment, shame, blame, guilt, judgment. And if any of those exist, you're not present. You're just not. There's no place for even your own life force, your own love to express itself because you're too busy everywhere else. So if we can get rid of all the stories that get us into resentment, shame, blame, guilt, we get rid of those stories when we discover, oh, I'm just speaking two different languages. It's not that they didn't want to listen to me or they don't care about me anymore or they don't hear me when I talk to them. We just talk differently. I'm going to learn how they talk and I want them to learn how I talk so that we can like have more fun with each other. We can connect with each other. It's like we can even be amused and have, just like play with each other. I had this one friend, figurative talking style. By the way, figurative and structural talking style people usually don't necessarily have the same sense of humor. And by sense of humor, it's not like the comedians you like or don't like. It's kind of like the thing that just feels funny to you. It kind of makes you giggle inside. And you go to share it with your partner and they look at you and go, what was that supposed to be funny? and you go, well, yeah, it's like cracks me up. And they're going, well, yeah, it's funny, weird, funny, right? So this one friend of mine, whenever I'd say something funny, she'd go like, she'd just go, it went right over her head, right? And she knew I was like, she could tell I was trying to say something funny, but she was just saying to me in a very playful way that she missed it. And when she did that, we would crack up laughing, right? So we found humor in our ability to mismatch each other's humor. How great is that?
That's great.
And I remember that experience. I've had this friend for 20 years. It's a woman I just really adore. And, we could go 5 years and not talk to each other and then have a conversation. It's like it was yesterday. And, those are precious. It's because I understood those differences and didn't get angry about them, right? So those are the 4 primary lifestyle traits. And then there's this thing called chemistry that is very confusing to a lot of people, most people, the world in general. So we call it attractions in our system. Chemistry is what it really is. And chemistry, everybody, you're on drugs. When you're all souped up with chemistry, it's dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, PEA, norepinephrine, what is it? Well, I said oxytocin. There's 6 of them now, right? And there's they're neurotransmitters and hormones that go all wacky when you're in a specific energetic match or mismatch, depending on the situation. And when we're all high on those drugs, I got to tell you, like, we don't see the challenges. This is the situation where someone meets somebody and they're a smoker and you hate cigarette smoke. It's like, I can't stand cigarette smoke, but this is my person. It's just like, this is my person. And you can feel it. You're tingly. You got goosebumps. Your whole body, you just desire them, but they're a smoker. And you say to them in a conversation, gosh, you know what? I still want to be with you, but I like smoke is tough for me. And so they put out the cigarette and they go, well, I won't smoke around you. And if this relationship works, I'm happy to quit. That happens. These conversations happen. I'm not just making this thing up or pulling it out of the air. This is like for real stuff. And so they have this conversation, I'll quit. And then a year goes by and he's still smoking. They're in a relationship. They're living together now. He goes out behind the house. He smokes, comes in, you smell in the clothing. She knows he's smoking, but she's still high on chemistry. She's still on drugs. Right? 2 years go by. He's still smoking. At that point, it's like, okay, hello. Chemistry is not going to hold up much longer. And there are studies done. Helen Fisher did this for, with chemistry.com, and she came up with this conclusion that chemistry only lasts 2 years. At the end of 2 years, it's gone, right? Bad science. It's bad science. She's, look at science is as good as the information you have at the time. She didn't have genetic energetics to look at. Since then, there's been peer-reviewed journal articles written on how genetic energetics can determine chemistry. She didn't have that at the time. The other thing she didn't have at the time is the fact that there is another neurotransmitter associated with pain that immediately makes all these other chemicals, this chemical soup, drop, right? And again, it's a different neurotransmitter. It was discovered in the last 2 or 3 years. Helen Fisher's work is 6, 7 years old. Maybe, I think actually it's almost a decade old. So the old belief that chemistry only lasts 2 years is just not true. It was good science at the time. It's inaccurate science now. And we've known it for a long time because we would interview couples that would go through like horrendously painful divorces. And they just they hate each other. And then they run into each other at a party, and one of them or both of them feel this attraction, and they go, ooh, I don't like this person, but I want them. Right? So the chemistry immediately comes back because they've been away from the pain. So it doesn't matter whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. When it gets bad enough, that chemical illusion, if you will, that drug that you're on plummets and it corrects things. Right? Now, chemistry feels great, guys. I mean, it feels awesome. And some of us have what we call true attractions. So it's really easy to follow that chemistry. Some of us have what's called false attractions, and it directs us to a person that's a little bit more challenging to be in a relationship with, especially if you don't understand genetic energetics or don't have any awareness about it. It doesn't matter whether they're true or false. When we're on that chemical high, we just have to be aware that we're drugged up. And it's a great drug. It can be a really fun drug, but it has us not make the best decisions, right? So we just have to be aware of that. And for those people that love the sense of chemistry, they love the feel of it. Some of them, it keeps their relationships together through thick and thin for centuries, not centuries, for decades, right? And the thing that's really beautiful about it is that they have learned to kind of be in it, but not be run by it. And for those people, when you get your profile and you find out that you have false attractions, you think, am I screwed? I have this broken picker. That's what we call it. Don't worry about it. When you meet the right person in your life, whoever it might be, and you begin to spend time with them and energetically interact with them, when that match begins to happen, chemistry will happen naturally instead of coming in like a fire hose. So that's the good news, right? How are we doing, Michael? It's just like, I said I could do that in 10 minutes. I lied. I was totally wrong. I didn't mean to deceive you, but I just and I didn't talk fast enough. I'm sorry, super active people, that I didn't get it out in 10 minutes. Please forgive me.
No, but you did a good job of putting emotion and tonality in your voice. So you kept us. So we appreciate that. Folks, we got to jump off, I think. But before we go, two things. Go down in the description. Please do yourself a favor. Go get Larry's free report.
That's the personal energetic profile. So if the description, I think I gave you a couple different ways to get links for this, Michael. One of them is for the personal energetic profile.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely go get that. It's a free report, folks. Just go get it. And you're going to have to go. We needed to up our security a lot because in this day and age, cybersecurity issues are big. So you have to go through a little hoop at the beginning to create a login, and you get this one-time password, and then you can run as many of these reports as you want. They're free. Run it on your beloved. Run it on your mom or your dad or your sisters or someone you work with. Run it on yourself first. You only need 2 pieces of information. Now, this is the part that kind of throws a lot of people off. All we're going to ask for is your birth date. You got to tell the truth. Okay. No one else sees it. Don't worry about it. So you got to use your birth date, month, day, and year. We don't care about time. We don't care about place. Just your birth date. And one other birth date is useful, and that is the birth date of your opposite gender biological parent. So women on the phone, this is your biological father. Men on this, listening to this, it's your biological mother. If you don't have that, go ahead and run the report anyhow. It's going to give you all the information that you want with the exception of the chemistry piece, right? And you can come back at a later time and run the report again if you get it. And some people don't have it. They're, mostly it's families that have kind of an Asian background, because in Asia, many of the different groups of people in different countries didn't keep track of birthdays. It's like their parents or their parents' parents don't know. So you're going to know yours. Almost everybody does these days, but you might not know your mom and dad's. Don't worry about it. Run the report anyhow. Okay. And we can tell from really experiences what your chemistry is. By the way, there is other information we didn't even get a chance to talk about that's massively valuable that we call modifiers. And those modifiers answer so many critically important questions about how we show up and how we interact with people. Michael. Helena's saying hello. I love this woman. She's your partner now, right, Mike? And some of the things you guys do.
Yeah.
It's like these are two, Helena Hart and Mike are like these guys. These are gems in the relationship industry.
And we're the same energetic profile. That's why we get along so easily.
It is. It is. And Helena will tell you that when she met her man, she ran a profile on herself and her man. We ran what we called a romance report, which is what the other link is. So the other link is for a report that's anywhere from 38 to 93 pages long, and it goes in depth. And we ran this report, and first thing I said to her is, he's a keeper, right? Because they were so similar to each other. And it's turned out to be a really amazing relationship. Like, couldn't be happier for her. So this is it. This is the gift. And you can get a hold of me, email me, larrym@the4answers.com. I will respond. If you have questions, I will respond. There are other interviews that have been done. Mike, you and I can do more. We come back and do the modifiers. That'd be fun, because that's a whole other kind of conversation, right? I'd be happy to do that with you. I just so treasure the work you do and how you do it. I'm here for you. So,
Larry, thank you for being so generous with your time. Folks, if you end up reaching out to Larry, the guy is just so freaking generous. What you're getting in this interview is what you get from him all the time. And you can't say enough about this guy. And he, over the years, one time, I think I gave him a phone call, I want to say 3 weeks ago. I think we spent 2.5 hours on the phone. Like, that's how generous he is. He's like in the middle of his workday. He's like, all right, here's 2.5 hours because I'm Larry Michael, and that's what I want to do right now. That's who this man is. And you just saw it. And he's a genius, and he gives you great advice. But get the free report. And then I would highly suggest getting the more in-depth report if you really want to step this up.
if you're in a relationship with someone, for sure, or you were in a relationship and you want to understand what the heck really happened. Right? Some people come out of relationships and they're having a really hard time moving away from it or transitioning. And this report will help. Will definitely help.
And to sum it all up, with absolute certainty, I can say if I would have had this, I would have had a much better chance of making my relationship work. Or I would have looked at this and said, holy crap, we are not aligned on so many different things. Maybe this is not my partner. Maybe I should make this easier. And so why go through the cavern, as I believe, Larry, with no lights on when you can turn the lights on? So free report, turn the lights on. So you know what you're looking at. You know what you are. And then when you date, you know what they are. And you can actually communicate effectively. You can have sex the way you were meant to have sex. It just make your life easier. Anyway, Larry, thank you so much for giving us your time. And everyone else, thank you for staying on here for an hour with us, hour plus. We really appreciate you. And hopefully we'll see you guys very shortly.
Thank you all. Many blessings. Have a great Christmas and a fantastic New Year. And please contact me if you have questions. I love the feedback.
And everyone here loved it. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Got to click.